What's up, guys? Sub-Zerek here, and today is Tacticians Trials 2 day, the first day of the tournament. There are a ton of great players playing in this tournament. I'm playing in this tournament as well, but I'm in the second group, so I'm going to be playing probably about an hour from when this video goes live. When this video is live, I'll probably be live, just spectating the other games, chilling out, waiting for my games to start. But yeah, Tacticians Trials 2. This is the tournament that feeds into the Tacticians Cup, which is one of the 3 big tournaments in North America that leads into regionals. So this is a big tournament for a lot of people. And today we're going to watch the perspective of Kurumx, because I just turned on his stream this morning, watched him play this game, and it was fantastic. One thing that's already notable from how Kurum is playing is that after the B patch, if you're paying attention, earlier, we got dropped in Aphelios. After the B patch, Kurum is really just not interested in playing around this faded line at all. You'll see him consistently skip some faded units in this early game. Now, he is going to hold on to the Ahri, and then he does have the opportunity to pick up, a Yasuo 2 at some point in this early game. And so he still wants to play around those units. However, he's really just not very interested in playing the, vertical faded setup when you play faded plus Dryad. And honestly, after seeing how it performed for me yesterday, how it's performed for other people, I don't blame him. It's not the strongest comp in the game. He's also angling pretty aggressively this game towards a comp that I think is really, really strong now. I would say, I would even go as far to say that it is the strongest comp in the game, which is this new Lillia comp. This is like Sage Lillia. If you guys remember like Sage, Sylas, and Morgana in the past, it's a lot like that comp, except it plays more around Lillia Morgana instead of Sylas Morgana, and then allows you to get in Mythic. It allows you to get in some other synergies like Warden. You'll see as we get to the later board. It's also really fantastic that this is our Exalted here. We have Zyra, Soraka, Lillia, 3 units that are very easy to fit on that board. Zyra for Sage, Soraka for Heavenly, along with Nico, and potentially Ultras down the line, and then Lillia for Lillia. So yeah, the other thing to note this game is that this is a tournament with people of very varying skill levels. There is, as high as someone who's Kurum, like 1300 LP North America, one of the best players in NA, plays TFT full-time, is an absolute monster, all the way to like Brazil Diamond players, basically. There are, I believe, some players from the Brazilian server who were like Diamond 1 made it into this tourney just because they don't have that big of a player base, or that deep of a strong player base compared to something like North America. So some interesting things end up happening in these games where people play some weird stuff, and we'll see some of the weird stuff later. Off carousel here, we have the Sword and Cloak open. The tier is a pretty straightforward take here. We can just pick up Shojin. One important thing about building Shojin, especially when you're going to play it onto someone like Lillia, is that really incentivizes you to play more around just this setup that, hey, Kurum's going to build it into Team Builder right now, put some of the units in there. It really incentivizes you to not play more than 2 Invoker. 4 Invoker and 6 Invoker versions of Lillia really prefer having something like a blue buff. Even an Adaptive Helm, I think, is okay with 4 Invoker, and then 6 Invoker, you really just want straight up damage. But when you play this build, when you play this build where you're playing around Soraka, you're playing around Nico, you're playing only 3 Mythic, it actually functions very, very well with Shojin, because all of these traits are giving Lillia more raw AP. Mythic's giving her AP, you're getting extra AP from Arcanist that you can fit in, you're getting extra AP from Heavenly that you can fit in, so you're just getting a lot of AP from outside sources. So something like a Shojin becomes pretty good because it can get Lillia to those casts along with the 2 Invoker that you'll often end up playing. When you play something like 4 Invoker, you're trading a lot of that AP for damage, and this is just something that I found when I played a game last night where I hit some really good Invokers. I was like, oh, maybe I'll play towards vertical Invokers, but it doesn't make sense when you're playing with these items, especially just when you start the game with a Shojin. Maybe if you start the game with a blue buff, you can think about it, but starting the game with a Shojin, you almost never want to play vertical Invoker just because you're going to have too much mana generation and not enough damage. So just a little factoid for you guys there. Double Rod here is fantastic. This can end up building into things like an Ionic Spark. There's also potentially a Nasher slammable here. We should just level up here so we can get these free Epoch rolls. And hey, we pick up a couple of Zyras, also maybe a Soraka here. What's the best in on this board? I mean, you could throw in an extra Heavenly unit. We don't have 5 Faded that we can play for here. He's just going to opt to get in the Kiana here because she's Duelist and also another Heavenly unit. And yeah, he is going to make the Nashers, makes the Spark, and then is just going to finally make a Gunblade here. Gunblade, it's not the best item in the world, but it's kind of the most necessary item. Also, yeah, I really love making 40 gold here. We'll find the Zyras and everything else later. We don't really need them for now. Augment-wise here, Accomplice is fantastic. Heavenly Crown doesn't really do anything. This is Radiant Item Portal, so we are going to get a Radiant item later, so we don't really want to be like maxed out on items by taking Pandora's. Accomplice and Stationary are both fantastic here. I think we can just lean towards Accomplice here, though I wonder what the stats say about this pick. I think the stats might say that Stationary is better after the buffs, but let's actually see. Stationary 4.30, Accomplice 4.41. That's just generic stats that's not in this comp specifically. So I would have to look, but I would even think Accomplice or Stationary would be even better in this comp. I mean, let's pull it up while I have a chance. I'm sorry if the video lags a little bit while I'm looking up stats. This website is poorly optimized. Stationary, Accomplice. It says they're pretty much exactly the same. Okay, sorry for the lag. We'll start building up the board now. We are also going to pick up this. I mean, this can just be defensive items here is the idea. I need to, because I know this one's Tier Rod, and Tier Rod's just so good. Yeah, I really... You can use so many rods in this comp, and Tier can be frontline item, and Rod can even be frontline item. I feel like it has to be this, but, you know, I could maybe see picking up... I mean, the Sunfire components could end up being a Sunfire, or it could end up being like a Morello plus frontline item. This is also, speaking of Sunfire comp, where you don't really want to itemize Sunfire very much, just because Morello is so much better if you throw it onto someone like a Morgana. She can just spread it infinitely better than something like a Sunfire that's just going to sit on the front line, so something to keep in mind as well. Unit off carousel or item off carousel here. There's an Alawi that we can just pick up. This is Alawi. One, it's an Alawi that we can play on our board later. Two, it can also be an adaptive helm, which is another fantastic item, though I guess kind of the question is where would that adaptive helm end up? Also, because of Epoch, we're already kind of pre-pumped, so we can just level here really, really easily, get the Alawi in for Arcanist, and our board's looking really good. But, I mean, as you can see, when I talked about... I guess you would just throw the adaptive onto someone like a Yasuo here and just leave it as an extra tank item. But yeah, as you can see, when someone like Kurumx plays in a lobby like this, where there are a lot of weaker players, and he was losing his mind at this is a person who took Sniper +1, slammed a Shojin, and they have a Nashor's on bench. He was trying to figure out what this person was even doing. Like I said, there's some crazy lines being played because the level of player in this tourney is very, very varying. I already said that. But you can see here, Kurumx, 83 HP, level 7, 50 gold. He's doing a fantastic job of making econ, and it's just domination from start to finish this game from Kurumx. Like, I feel like many people want to say that, you know, oh, the reason I'm stuck in X elo is because, you know, I just get unlucky, and, you know, Dish Soap is just the luckiest player. And I mean, I would think it would be pretty easy to debunk that, but a lot of people seem to think otherwise. But you can see just the level of quality decisions Kurumx makes this game, just always building the right items, always making econ at the right time, always picking the right augments. It's really hard to bot 4 in these lobbies if you do all that. He's going to pick up a Radiant Static Shiv here because this item's just a little bit broken. I know we already have Spark here, but Radiant Static Shiv, it's just such a good item. We're going to level up to 8 here, and we have 40 gold, 50 gold to roll, even with the extra rolls from Epoch. We have so much. The interesting thing at this point, though, is that Kurumx actually misses pretty hard on this level 8 roll down. We haven't seen a single Lillia, haven't seen a single Morgana, haven't seen some of the other units that we want to pick up, but we're just going to play good, solid TFT. We're not going to, you know, panic and roll it to 0 or anything like that. We're going to keep our current board, and look, we're still winning with this board where we're just carrying on to an Ari because we have good item slams, we have good upgrades. The Alawi 2 is a fantastic frontline upgrade. We get the opportunity to pick up Impenetrable Bulwark here, which is going to juice our frontline even more. There's also the opportunity to take something like Roll the Dice. I think Roll the Dice is another good option here. It's just kind of awkward on some of the units that we want to play later. But yeah, we're going to continue to roll down here. Never to 0 gold, but roll a bit here just to try to pick up a Lillia, something like that. We end up picking up an Ornn too, which can just go in over the Malphite here to be a better frontliner. It's a little annoying, though, because you don't really love Ornn on this board. You'd much prefer the Nautilus is what you want to play for. And we also see this person here who's playing Lillia. They have a Radiant blue buff. They're playing a Bard on their board with a bunch of random stuff on it. They're playing the more like the more vertical mythic version of the board. But hey, we're going to win this fight as well. We're still going to hold on to a few of these units, like the Zyra, like the Soraka, because we want those to come in for Exalted, like I was talking about. But we're, once again, just not, like, sending to 0 here. Kurumx, he's so healthy, and he has so much econ that he doesn't feel the need to roll it to 0 in a spot like this. He says, my board's upgraded enough. I'll roll more next round to look for some more upgrades. But look at the boards I'm fighting. I'm fighting a Caitlyn 2 and a Kog'Maw 2 with a Deathblade. Like, there's no need to roll it to 0 in spots like these, and it just goes to show, like, yeah, it's, you know, some people are like, okay, why do these tourneys exist when there's just such a huge skill gap? But I almost like watching tourneys like this where there's such a skill gap, because you can just see where the skill in TFT lies. It's so easy to watch a challenger lobby and be like, well, the person who, won this lobby is just the person who high rolled the hardest. And, if theoretically in a world where everyone was exactly the same skill level, maybe that would be the case. When you watch lobbies like this, it's hard to not say that there's a huge degree of skill in what Kurumx is doing, because the game just seems so easy for him. We do pick up a Lillia finally, so now we can get into our board here. We have Annie pair as well to think about, so we want to hold on to that. We get the Exalted in, we get the Morgana in as well, and this is just going to be our board. Kurumx does something kind of interesting with items here that I'm not sure about, is he slams the Radiant Shiv onto Lillia. I feel like it would be much better. Like, I'd basically like to put the Shiv on Morgana and then the Gunblade on Lillia, because I think Lillia is just going to do so much more damage than the Morgana throughout the rest of this game. We also pick up a Nautilus here, and he immediately actually cuts the Ornn and says, you know what? Alawi is just a better tank than Ornn because of how hard that Warden has been buffed. This Alawi unit is just unreasonable, so I'm more interested in playing this board. It also allows me to get Mythic in, so yeah, we're just going to sell the Ornn move items to Alawi here, which is just funny that this is the state of the game. The balancing on the front line is a little bit off in the current set, but, hey, we can play for that. But yeah, I feel like I would really like this Shiv to be on Morgana, since she's more of like the supportive backline unit, and then Lily is the one who's going to be doing all the damage. That's how I think about it, and I believe he, at the end of the stage, actually uses Remover and moves those items around. He's also still looking for a Morello or a red buff here. We have the belt open, so it's very likely that that's going to become Morello, because heal cut is very, very important when we are playing a comp like this, because we want to potentially even heal cut the backline with something like Morgana so Lillia can snipe better. We get the extra rerolls here, so we are going to roll down here and try to pick up some upgrades. We pick up a Morgana. We still have the Annie pair, which is something to think about. This has to be Morello, certainly, which means our other item can be potentially like a Gargoyle. And yeah, Kurumx here is just trying to figure out what his items are going to be. I think the ideal setup is Static Shiv on Morgana, and then because you're shiving Morgana, you don't really want Nashers on Morgana, so you would do something like Shojin, Nashers here, and then Adaptive Morgana. The only awkward thing is then like you JG here, and then you have the Gunblade left over if you do something like that. And my thought process was just do that and then just throw the Gunblade onto Wukong. We have Wukong pair, and it's reasonable that we find like a Wukong 2 later. I think he does something slightly different here, where he ends up, yeah, he Gunblades and JG's the Lillia, moves the Nashers over to Zyra, which, I mean, honestly, in hindsight, it might be better than the setup I'm talking about, because Shojin, Nashers, Lillia might just not have the juice, might not have the damage to kill everybody, and random Nashers onto Zyra makes some amount of sense, so I could certainly see it. We are still 2 pair here in the Lillia and the Annie here, so I think it does make a lot of sense to roll down here. And after picking up the Annie 2, we can start to say, okay, now our board is really, really strong. We've picked up all the reasonable pairs. We only have 1 pair left to roll for here, so it doesn't make sense for us to actually roll deeper. We can just think about pushing level 9 here, and also waiting for this guy to die. They're the person holding on to 3 Lilias. Once they die, we could also think about rolling, though sadly we're going to end up losing to them. It's that frustrating thing that happens at the end of some TFT games, where this person is stronger than us, but we have the potential to cap higher, so we kind of have to wait for them to die. It's kind of annoying, but we'll wait for them to die, then we can easily pick up a Lillia, and then our board will be very, very capped. And you can see the power of this board, even with unupgraded Lillia, how fights like that are close, even against someone who has like a Lillia too. The Lillia, just with these new buffs to her, just does such an insane job of sniping backline. Throw the Morgana into that, and look, we just sniped the entire enemy backline with Morgana plus Lillia items. It's just completely unreasonable. Also, that person that was contesting this does end up dying here, which is fantastic. We can look for last Annie item here, but doesn't really exist, so we're just going to go for the Lillia. It's a Lillia off Carousel, and BT is not even bad on someone like Annie. You could also hold it for the Wukong, but I think we just make it onto Annie. Now we have Lillia too, and our board is looking very, very nice. We can just look to push levels for this Wukong, for potentially a Rakan down the line. I think oftentimes people end up capping out with Wukong, Rakan, and then you can cut Soraka. Feels a little bit bad because you end up losing Ultrist. You can also even end up cutting stuff like Annie, though at this spot we're probably not going to cut Annie, but there are other ideas of playing stuff like Janna instead of where Annie is to get to more vertical Dragon Lord, though probably not to something like a 5 or a 4 Dragon Lord. That's a little bit hard to play in this spot, but hey. You have Annie 2, so you're probably going to play Annie 2 on this board. But yeah, as you can see, Kurumx has a huge HP lead over the lobby. It doesn't even look close. He's 20 HP over everyone, and the person he's closest to is that guy who's playing snipers with the AP items, has a sniper Ari that's holding on to his other items. And I mean, this is a board that we're always going to outcap. They also have double Gwinsu Ashe, this Ashe with just, and the tiny but deadly, so just no damage. Also Baboom for some reason, which is I don't really understand what the Baboom is doing here. I guess, I mean, they're I didn't even realize that they're 8 Aris. They have Aris on bench. They're going for Ari3 for the sniper Ari3 with Baboom. I mean, that person's cooking. Maybe a little bit too hard. They're kind of burning down the kitchen with this setup, but you know, that's, hey, it's an interest. I mean, if it worked, it would be sick. And hey, I mean, they do coast to a top 4 here, maybe even like a top 3. So can you really say that it didn't work? You get the Epoch XP, so it makes sense to just level here. Kurumx actually makes the call here, and he's like, I could just push level 10 in this spot because I really don't have that much stuff to roll for. Like, Wukong 2 doesn't really do anything. Nautilus 2 doesn't really do that much, so I'm just going to consider pushing level 10 in this spot. And, I mean, I think it certainly makes sense to go for that. I mean, the board already looks fantastic. All of these matchups are quite hard to lose, honestly. This person playing the Vertical Duelist, but they don't really have any combat augments. They're like Patient Study Vertical Duelist, which doesn't really work too well either. So we're just going to sit on this board, look at going level 10, and just guaranteeing that we're going to win the lobby. But look how low everyone is. 5-3 HP here. My god, I'm 16 minutes into this game. It is 6-2, and the game is already almost over. I mean, just goes to show the level of domination that Kurumx did this game, and what happens when, you know, you're a good TFT player and you play against players who are just, you know, that much, when you're that much better than the rest of the lobby. We stomped this board, pretty sure we double kill here, and yeah, it's the dub at 16 minutes for Kurumx. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I thought it was a really fun game showing off just this fantastically strong comp, and also just, you know, showing what being good at TFT is. It's making econ, playing really consistently, making good items, and stomping the competition. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, I'll be playing in the trials. I'll be live on Twitch and on YouTube, so you can watch me play. Hopefully I pull a Kurumx and just stomp the competition. Rage for that. I appreciate anybody who watches and supports, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.